Metaphor Refantazio has been my most hyped game for this year. I loved both Persona 5 and 3, and what makes Metaphor different from the Persona series is its fantasy theme, and I really like fantasy themes which are only second to sci-fi. And so naturally, when the Prologue Demo was shadow dropped, I stopped everything and I played the entire demo in one sitting, and it took a bit under 7 hours to complete, which is actually pretty long for a demo. And also, the file size for this demo took more space than both Persona 5 Royal and Persona 3 Reload combined. Take that how you will, but I see this as a good thing. Assuming all that is compressed properly, there seems to be a lot of content for the main release, and the actual release of the game is only like 2 weeks away. So, what were my first impressions of the game? At least for the first 7 hours, I thought the story was very intriguing. I streamed 7 hours straight and I was still reading through all of the dialogue and text. I compare this to like other games where I tune out maybe after a couple of hours and I just start like skimming through everything. Like the new Zelda game for instance, and Octopath Traveler to some extent, especially the first Octopath game. But I was very invested into Metaphor, and at least based off the trailers, the main thing that makes this unique to other JRPGs that I've played is that the plot is revolved around an election. You are in a sense campaigning yourself against other noteworthy characters and figures to become the ruler of Euchronia. The demo didn't really cover this part yet. It's a prologue demo, so it's not at that point yet, but there were instances of social and political issues that you see as you go through the streets of the royal capital, whether it's religious freedom, racism, disparity of the rich and poor, and economic issues, just to name a few. Now I noticed all of this in just the city in a prologue demo, and I'm sure there are more that I haven't seen or even recognized. It seems like it has all the foundations ready to see many different issues and subplots that will probably be expanded further into the story, and as we explore more of Euchronia, see more races, and visit more towns. The world map is pretty big, so I'm sure we will see all of these things in the actual release. Something else that is noteworthy is that the protagonist, that I named Will, is actually voiced like any other character in the game. There are still dialogue options, but like in other games, especially if I'm streaming, I have to say the option that I picked out loud. But in Metaphor, the protagonist actually says the option that you picked out loud. It's very small, but it's something that I've been hoping that more JRPGs follow. For games where you don't customize your characters, I find it weird that the protagonist is silent and needs a companion, that's usually annoying, to act as the protagonist's voice. This is something that I hope continues into possibly like the next Persona game. Another thing that I liked is the inclusion of the memorandum. During dialogue sequences, essentially it's like your own little dictionary that defines or further explains people, races, places, or anything that you may be a bit confused or you forgot like their significance in the story. Especially with how potentially complex the story can be, I think I will find this very useful if they mention something that I'm not entirely sure, but I know is important and I could easily look it up in-game without potentially being spoiled if I go on Google. Closest thing that I can think of is from Star Rail, but you don't really get your own glossary. It just shows like the modern term or saying underneath like the pronoun mentioned. The character design is probably one of the best things about this game. I haven't seen all the races in the demo, but going off by the trailers, there are so many interesting looking characters that look amazing. And the art style is so unique and cool that unless you're not into anime in any sort of capacity, I think that you will find it really cool. And it also gets bonus points for me that it feels like they all thematically belong in this fantasy world. I really think it's really neat. The graphics are also really good. Again, in the demo, you don't really see that much diverse areas since you're just mostly in and around the capital city. But going off by the trailers, there's a lot of diverse biomes and towns. I hope this is true, but it seems like Euchronia is going to be a big world with full of distinct personalities and secrets to uncover, and the animated cutscenes are also really nice, and I hope there are more of these in the main questline, as you can tell that they put a lot of effort into these. The game functions very similar to Persona. Once I got through the long intro sequence and was able to get into the daily routine, so to speak, it was basically like Persona 5 and I immediately knew what to do. Those who played Persona 5 before will probably feel the same way as I did. Gotta build up my royal virtues, gain more followers, progress through the main quest, and whatnot. If you haven't played Persona 5 before, I think you'll be fine as there's not that many options to do before the deadline, so you shouldn't feel like you'll be missing out on content. I can only assume the option increases more once the game stops holding your hand, like in Persona. A quick explanation for people that don't play Persona: your activities will work around a calendar, essentially, by June 21st, so 10 days. You must complete the main quest or else you get a game over and you may have to potentially have to be restarted back 3 days, something you don't want to do. 10 days is more than plenty of enough time to complete the quest. The real question is, what else are you willing to do? Each day is broken into day and night, and you can do a variety of activities such as hanging out with party members, embarking out on a side quest, talking to town folks to increase personal stats, or just anything of note. Anything marked with a clock will then change day to night or night to the next day. Some activities are only available at night, some during the day, and when embarking on a side quest or the main quest dungeon, you can only start it during the day and counts as both your day and night activity. It makes planning very essential, especially if you're the type to min-max everything or wanting to fully experience all the content presented to you. The combat is also very similar to the Persona series. It's turn-based with a few added elements. I personally think that it's almost different enough from the Persona series, as there's like party formation, where you can move your characters further back to take less damage or further forward to deal more damage. And there's also like a combo skill attack that you do with party members depending on their archetype, and archetypes act like jobs in this game, so technically anyone can be your healer or tank or DPS or whatever. You have more freedom in team comps and character builds than something that you would not see in Persona series. I do like the idea of archetypes and being able to be more creative with my team comps and character builds. I guess the real concern is how slow the progression will be in acquiring these different archetypes and just leveling in general. I think a game like this will benefit if you get a good chunk of the archetypes in rapid succession early on, so it gives you more time to experiment with different things to see what works with who and what doesn't work. I'm not sure, because obviously I only played the Prologue Demo, but that is my hope. Meta for Refantazio so far looks very promising. Visually, it looks amazing, from the UI, to the world environment, to the characters' designs. It looks top-notch, and clearly a lot of effort was put into the presentation of this game. The story so far is very intriguing, as it covers a lot of different social issues in a unique way, especially when the plot revolves around an election. The combat and the life sim aspect of the game is similar to Persona, which is not a bad thing, because Persona does it very, very well. But in this case, you're not a high school student, you are in a huge fantasy world with so many issues, whether it's racism, poverty, religion. It feels like the stakes are higher in a more mature way. The only thing that I'm skeptical really is just how progression is in terms of leveling up, gaining skills, and most importantly, acquiring those archetypes. If acquiring a good chunk of those archetypes takes a while, then it may hamper my experience in trying to make a well-balanced team composition. Meta for Refantazio is my most anticipated game for this year, and so far, I've been more than impressed. I can only hope that it only gets better from here, because if it is, the next 90 hours are going to be the best 90 hours I'll have in my life. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video if you like this type of content. I plan on streaming my playthrough of Meta for Refantazio when it comes out in a couple of weeks, so it'd be cool to see some of you pop in and say hello. Leave a comment down below and come join the Discord and link below that I'm active in. See you guys later.